This investigation has grown immensely over the last 24 to 36 hours and has involved a number of different entities and crimes across the state of Idaho.
Tonight, the manhunt is over. Authorities in Idaho say they've arrested an escaped inmate and the accomplice who helped him break free. But now investigators suspect the men were involved in 2 new homicides. Good evening. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. This afternoon, authorities caught up with inmate Skylar Mead and his suspected accomplice, Nicholas Umfenauer, in Twin Falls, Idaho. And that ended a statewide manhunt that began after yesterday's ambush on Idaho corrections officers in Boise. They were transporting Mead from a hospital back to a prison when they were fired on, leaving 3 of those officers wounded. Mead and the shooter got away. The director of Idaho's Department of Corrections says he's confident officers adhered to all policies when they were trying to transport Mead. Now he's exploring whether some of those policies might need to change.
Security was actually augmented as a result of Mead's history. So they did, in fact, go above and beyond. The second piece of that, which falls squarely on me, is whether our policies and practices were sufficient enough to put our staff in a position to maintain their safety and security. And so that's the process that's ongoing right now for department leadership as well as prisons leadership to make sure that they're positioned as good as possible.
The officers who were wounded during yesterday's ambush are recovering. 2 of them, though, do remain in the hospital. Tonight, the Department of Justice is going after Apple with a sweeping antitrust lawsuit. KTVU's Jesse Gary breaks down the case as prosecutors accuse the Silicon Valley tech giant of stomping out competitors in the smartphone marketplace.
For decades, Apple's innovation and penchant for isolation behind a fortress-like environment have helped build its brand, a loyal customer base, and more than a few detractors.
That's part of what draws people away from the Apple ecosystem, is that they kind of lock down the software more than other companies.
Thursday, federal officials filing suit saying the trillion-dollar tech giant not only locks down its software, but also locks out competitors to a fair market.
They are not the leader in the market that they are because they are winning on the merits. They are in that place, in that front position, because of illegal monopolistic behaviors.
The U.S. Department of Justice, along with 15 states and the District of Columbia, says Apple is a bully to other businesses and violates antitrust laws. Specifically, prosecutors say Apple engages in anti-competitive conduct toward third-party app developers. For example, it makes messaging with non-Apple phones and products worse, which prosecutors claim makes its users think iPhones are better than the other brands on the market. And the company makes it more difficult for users and developers to move beyond its products and services and share information with non-Apple brands. The result is peer pressure on non-Apple users to switch to Apple.
I do find it easier to stay in the Apple family. Everything works together.
Federal officials say this has become a type of tax or commission of up to 30% on any app from the iStore and on in-app purchases.
Consumers should not have to pay higher prices because companies break the law.
One impact is that once you get into the Apple ecosystem, you're highly incentivized to buy additional Apple products. So it does make it difficult for consumers to do the mixing and matching that some might want to do.
In an emailed response, Apple executives say if this suit is successful, it will hinder our ability to create the kind of technology people expect from Apple, where hardware, software, and services intersect. Additionally, the statement says this sets a dangerous precedent, empowering government to take a heavy hand in designing people's technology. At the Apple store in Palo Alto, some Apple customers agree the company that provides much of the products they use in their daily lives does function as a monopoly. But many said so far, the benefits outweigh any alleged harm.
Yeah, you can buy any of the products that you want. No one's making you buy Apple products.
The government seeks injunctive relief, meaning they want Apple to change their business practices. California Attorney General Rob Bonta says if this case does move forward, it could take 3 years to sort all of this out. In Cupertino, Jesse Gary, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Jury selection is underway in Nogales, Arizona for a rancher charged with the murder of a migrant. Prosecutors say 75-year-old George Kelly opened fire at a group of migrants back in January of 2023. An unarmed 48-year-old man was killed by the gunfire. Court documents say Kelly believed the group of people he shot at were trespassing and ruining his way of life. Kelly could face nearly 24 years behind bars if he's convicted. Cameras captured tense moments at the southern border in Texas today. This video shows more than 100 migrants breaking through a razor wire fence in El Paso. A group of Texas National Guard members failed to hold back the migrants. After they pushed through, they were stopped by another fence that's just yards away. The National Guard was able to eventually secure that area. It is unclear still tonight what happened before the razor wire fence came down. In Glendale, Arizona, 2 people are under arrest tonight after a 4-year-old boy accidentally shot himself in the chest. Fortunately, that child is expected to recover. As Fox 10's Lauren Clark reports, neighbors are upset about what happened.
When I got up, police and detectives everywhere across the street.
It's something neighbor Manuel Avila says is difficult to stomach. The 4-year-old boy he often sees playing outside, now suffering in the hospital with a gunshot wound.
Terrible. That's the only reason I don't have a gun in my house. I got 4 grandkids and I don't have a gun nowhere in my house.
On Wednesday morning, Glendale police responded to a call of an accidental shooting off of 68th Avenue in Windsor. There, they found a young child bleeding after accidentally shooting himself in the chest.
The child was in bed, and there was a firearm in the bed. He reached over underneath a pillow, and then an accidental discharge is what occurred and struck the child. So after that, the adult that was with him in the bed, contacted the other adult. They began calling police.
First responders rushed the boy to the hospital where he's in stable condition. While investigating, officers found various magazines, ammunition, and gun parts within reach of children. Glendale police arrested the child's dad, 44-year-old Kevin Rhymes, and his dad's girlfriend, 31-year-old LaQuasha Sebastian. They're facing charges including child abuse, child endangerment, and misconduct involving weapons. At the couple's first court appearance this morning, prosecutors suggested there may be more to the story.
There are allegations additionally that video surveillance at the residence was tampered with, presumably by Mr. Rhymes after the shooting. Mr. Rhymes is a felon and was allegedly in possession of at least 1 firearm.
As for Manuel, he hopes the upsetting story is a lesson for many to take to heart.
People that do have a gun should have a case or a protected safety for guns. If you're going to hold a gun, you should buy that too.
And that was Fox 10's Lauren Clark reporting for us tonight. Officers say they have been to that house repeatedly over the last year, including calls for domestic violence. In one case, police say they found that same child playing with disassembled guns. Authorities say they've identified the man who killed a Utah couple. They were found dead in the Arizona desert more than 5 years ago. The bodies of Jerry and Susan McFalls were found in Virgin River Gorge in 2018. The Mojave County Sheriff's Office says they have determined Kenneth Gene Snyder was the killer in this case. A witness said he shot the couple after an altercation. Snyder was then shot and killed during a domestic violence situation that happened last year. The California Highway Patrol arrested several protesters at a home in Los Angeles as they were staging what organizers describe as an eviction blockade. All this unfolded last night as demonstrators tried to prevent a woman from being locked out of the home where she'd been staying. Thelma McKinley, who has medical issues, was homeless until being allowed to move into that state-owned property under LA's transitional housing program. She'd been paying $200 a month to stay there until being forced out. This transitional housing program lasts a maximum of 2 years. McKinley says she was unable to find other housing options during that time.
Work has not been my focus. It's been rehabilitating and regaining my memory.
We do not support short-term temporary housing in this way.
Because you don't think 2 years, that law is enough?
2 years, no, especially given the housing crisis.
LA's Housing Authority has not responded to requests to comment on this situation. McKinley says she is hoping friends will take her in until she can find other housing. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, today's tip-off of March Madness starts a flurry of sports betting We'll take you to Las Vegas, where the sports books are expecting fans will put billions of dollars on the line.
And in weather, here's our live camera looking out towards San Francisco in the San Francisco Bay Area. Some clouds moving into the picture. In fact, some changes offshore in the Pacific that'll boost some rain chances for a good portion of the West Coast. We will have the update coming up.
Also coming up tonight, a Washington community in mourning. We'll hear from the friends and family supporting two siblings who lost their mom and three friends in a car crash.
We all think, like, what would Andrea need us to do right now? And definitely being there for her kids is what I think she would want the most.
A large brush fire in Oregon is now contained tonight. This fire started yesterday near Sweet Home, a small city about 50 miles south of Salem. Fire officials say there was minimal fire activity overnight, and they don't expect the fire to grow. About 10 acres burned here. No homes or buildings were damaged, and the cause of the fire is under investigation still tonight. Firefighters in Utah burned large piles of tumbleweed, all in an effort to try to reduce the wildfire risk. Video posted to social media shows crews torching mounds of tumbleweed on Monday in Eagle Mountain. A windstorm pushed tumbleweed into neighborhoods east of Provo earlier this month. It was quite the scene. In some places, it was piled as high as single-family homes. Firefighters are hoping the images of these controlled burns will remind people just how quickly flames can spread. Tonight, loved ones are supporting two siblings who survived a horrific crash outside of Seattle that killed their mother and three of their young friends. Relatives say those two surviving siblings are in bad shape. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling spoke with family members about how they're trying to cope with this tragic loss.
The surviving kids are in very rough shape, and they have surrounded them with love and support. The family has started a fundraiser for the kids, as the two will have a long road of recovery ahead.
Andrea has this quiet sweetness about her.
Family members say 38-year-old Andrea Hudson was a loving daughter, sister, mother, and wife.
She dated her husband Abe in high school. They were high school sweethearts.
Andrea's sister Melanie Haynes says she loved camping and being active, sharing that with her three children and husband Abe, her high school sweetheart.
They love the outdoors and being together outside.
Andrea homeschooled her kids and was part of a co-op, often acting as the bus driver for other children during outings.
It was Andrea's turn to pick up that day.
Haynes said Andrea had just picked up her oldest two kids, Nolan 14 and Charlotte 12, and three of their friends. And Andrea was going to drop them off when deputies say an 18-year-old man slammed into their SUV at 90 miles per hour, flipping it Tuesday. Andrea did not survive. Her kids' three young friends, 12 and 13 years old, also passed away.
Their families have been amazingly supportive. Even this morning, one of them showed up on Andrea's doorstep where I was safe and asked how we were doing, even though she just lost her own child.
Charlotte and Nolan were taken to the hospital with critical injuries.
Andrea's two oldest kids survived, but are in pretty bad shape. Nolan has a lot of broken bones, a lot of surgery still left ahead.
Wednesday was the first time Charlotte opened her eyes, her dad waiting with her favorite toy at the hospital. Their youngest son, Jude, was home at the time of the crash, with Haynes and other families stepping in to help support him.
He's doing good. He's a strong little guy, but it's going to be hard for him. Him and his mom were very, very close. All of them were very close with their mom.
The family set up an online fundraiser to help Abe and the kids with medical expenses as they recover and grieve, learning how to navigate the world without Andrea.
You know, we all think, like, what would Andrea need us to do right now? And definitely being there for her kids is what I think she would want the most.
The 18-year-old driver that's accused of hitting the group was also injured and taken to Harborview. At last check, that person was in critical care. The King County Sheriff's Office is investigating and says charges are pending. In the newsroom, Jennifer Dowling, Fox 13 News.
A Colorado man has been sentenced for his role in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Jeffrey Sable will serve 5 years and 3 months in prison. Authorities say he ripped a baton from a police officer's hands before pulling another officer into the crowd, allowing other rioters to assault the officer with weapons. Sable told the judge he knows he is 100% guilty and would have apologized to the officers if they had attended the hearing. Well, Turning to our weather here in the west, and rain is moving out of Arizona tonight. Showers started moving across that state last night, and they stuck around through the late afternoon hours. This was the steady downpour in Tempe, just outside of Phoenix. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Mark Tamayo with a breakdown of what we can expect weather-wise as we head toward the weekend. Mark?
Hi there, Alex. Yeah, we're going to bump up the rain coverage for parts of the West Coast over the coming days. In fact, we'll begin with the rainfall forecast model. And as you can see here, these numbers will be going up into Friday and into the weekend. You get the sense here that we have the rain expanding from portions of Northern California, then up in the Pacific Northwest, some measurable rainfall as well over the coming days. This was the scene today in Seattle, showing you some cloud cover out there, a temperature of 56 degrees. Out in the San Francisco area, we had a sun-cloud mix. This was the camera looking out toward the Golden Gate Bridge earlier today. The rainfall will be making a comeback in San Francisco tomorrow afternoon. A high today of 65 degrees. And then down in Southern California, Los Angeles had an observed high of 71 degrees. This is nearby Santa Monica, where you can see some of the patchy fog back in the picture. So here's the satellite and the radars. You can't pick out the moisture moving in. Look at all this activity offshore out here, and actually some cooler air is getting its act together as well. So it looks like temperatures will be dropping over the next several days. But here is the radar imagery and the satellite imagery. You can see some rain showers out toward the coast of portions of Washington and northern Oregon, and still a few rain showers nearby. But as we back out the view here, this is the speckled cloud cover that's going to move into Northern California and the Bay Area. That'll definitely send temperatures down as we head toward the weekend. So here's kind of the breakdown for your Friday. Showers likely up in the Pacific Northwest, right around Seattle. Temperatures in the 50s. Rainfall developing in San Francisco, especially tomorrow afternoon. Sunshine out toward Denver. It looks like we have a sun-cloud mix out toward Southern California. And in the Phoenix area, we should have temperatures warming back up into the 80s for tomorrow afternoon. In the Sierra, in fact, here's the rainfall and the snowfall expected to move in Friday. They do have a winter storm warning out toward the west slopes of the Sierra, and snowfall potentially could be around 15 to 30 inches. So the snowfall making a comeback in the mountains. Here is the forecast models. We put this into motion. So this is tonight. And as you can see, the progression with the rain chances up in Portland and up in Seattle. You notice the coverage increasing up in Northern California, approaching the Bay Area. This will be approaching Southern California as we head toward the weekend. That's what the forecast model shows here. So you get the sense that we have the rain and the snowfall kind of blossoming over portions of the West Coast as we take that into the Saturday forecast. So here is the plan. As you can see, over the next several days, we'll keep those rain clouds going up in Seattle. San Francisco, a big shift in the weather pattern with the rain making a comeback, possibly some thunderstorms. And as you can see for Southern California, we'll be talking about some cloud cover by Friday, and then by Saturday, we're thinking some rain chances going up. So it looks like the pattern changing. I know it's springtime, but we're still talking about a winter-like pattern developing over the next couple days.
Yeah, still a chance for showers. Okay, yeah. Mark, thank you. Nearly 80,000 Americans will have roughly $6 billion in student loans canceled. Today, President Biden announced a plan to forgive the debt of public service workers, including teachers, nurses, and firefighters. As Fox's Connor Hansen reports tonight, it's the latest move by the administration to provide debt relief as the president tries to gain momentum on his West Coast campaign tour.
President Biden says 78,000 firefighters, teachers, nurses, and other public service workers will have their student debt canceled, nearly $6 billion in total. The administration has now forgiven student loans for almost 4 million Americans.
President Biden has felt very strongly about wanting to relieve the burden of this debt.
The Department of Education says changes were made to an existing program for public workers that was overly complicated and restrictive. Canceling student debt on a large scale was a key part of Biden's 2020 campaign, although the Supreme Court struck down his attempt last June. The latest announcement comes after Biden's multi-state campaign swing out west, promoting his economic agenda.
It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, everything's going to be okay. Well, that's what we're working on.
But not everyone thinks canceling debt is the best way to move the economy forward, as the national debt has climbed to more than $34 trillion.
I mean, what is the rationale? And how is it sustainable? We're just doing it now, just this year, just this administration. What about the future administrations? And what does it say to students who want to go get an education? Maybe I'll have to pay, maybe I won't. I mean, what kind of responsibility does that teach you as a young adult?
The Biden administration says some of those public workers will start to receive emails next week And despite the recent Supreme Court decision, the president hopes to find more ways to cancel student debt. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
All right, coming up on West Coast Wrap tonight. Brackets set and March Madness begins. Tonight, how Las Vegas sports books are turning this year's tournament into big business. March Madness kicked off today with 16 West Coast teams in the mix and a whole lot of money being wagered on the games. The American Gaming Association estimates fans will spend more than $2 billion betting on this year's college basketball tournament. Fox's Sunny Sai spoke with sportsbooks in Las Vegas as business ramps up.
It is March and Madness is definitely here at the Westgate Superbook with people lining up as early as 4 or 5 this morning to get a seat. Even though more states have legalized sports betting since last year's March Madness, basketball fans are still coming in waves to the Strip to get in on the action.
It's going to be a packed house for all 4 days. It's one of the biggest sport events that we have each and every year. It rivals the Super Bowl.
Not an empty seat at the Westgate Superbook as fans come in from all over to cheer on their teams and place their wagers. Since the last March Madness, more states have legalized sports betting, but that hasn't affected the crowds flocking to the Strip.
You take all the jurisdictions now that have legalized sports betting, we are looking at records. You're talking in the billions now, and certainly a lot more than we had last year. It really hasn't affected Nevada. We see a lot of new faces of people that have been playing in other states, eventually like to come to Vegas.
On top of that, interest in women's sports has grown significantly.
The overall interest in women's sports has grown in the sports betting world, and especially for this basketball tournament. With Iowa and what they've done, along with all the other popular teams that have received a lot of coverage during the course of the season, we're seeing numbers that we've never seen in women's sports.
We've seen handle increase almost at double digits, and we offered, I think, almost double the events than we did last season for the postseason for women. So just we see the interest in our customers, and so we've stepped up and doubled our coverage in terms of things that you can transact on.
Caesars Sportsbook advises bettors if you're putting down money on March Madness, you have to do the work.
What you want as a sports bettor is you want to feel like you're making a knowledgeable bet. You want to prove that you're right, that you've done the work. And March Madness is one of those events where you do the work, you go in, you research all the teams and the players.
Both sportsbooks tell me it is nearly impossible to have a perfect bracket, but there are still plenty of ways to win money this tournament with proposition wagers, in-game wagers, and more. In Las Vegas, Sunny Sai, Fox News.
Finally tonight, a donated car is changing the life of a veteran in Phoenix. Parvin Kreidler served in both the Army and the Navy. His car was totaled in a crash, so he had no way to get to work and lost his job. But that could change after he received a free Jeep Compass through Arizona's Disabled American Veterans East Valley chapter. The veteran chapter says that car was donated by a local community member. Good to see him turning things around. Thank you for watching West Coast Wrap tonight. You can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering at westcoastwrap.com and stream our shows on your smart TV with the Fox Local app. Have a great night.